Can't laugh about them because we're offending someone. Oh. Madam, I'm grateful to you for coming, but to be quite honest with you, fuck your feelings.
This is to Milo.
Okay.
You keep attacking Rebecca's work quite personally, and you said that she likes to objectify men, but she doesn't like women being objectified. She actually wrote an article how she didn't like Brooklyn Beckham being called something like young, sexy, and legal, and how she thought that it was wrong that he was called that by another article. So that clearly shows that she doesn't like.
Well, I never said she was consistent, but she did write an article in the wake of the Charlotte Proudman issue, and there was a lawyer who decided she didn't want to be a lawyer anymore, she wanted to be a Guardian columnist, so she made a name for herself by complaining that a man had said she looked nice. Well, I'm sorry, love. So she went to town, publicly shamed him.
I suspect this is verging the realms of ad hominem attacks.
I am really interested to hear where you're going, because I don't think I read it.
In your piece, you said that if it was a man, you'd probably have laughed. Do you want me to quote it?
I'm genuinely, yes, I would, because I'm not saying you're wrong, I just don't remember writing it.
Okay. I'll find it while you're recording.
After this one last question, just to clarify.
Yeah, it was,
it?
if I knew that a male member of staff was speculating about how I look naked, I would cause the sort of fuss that would make Charlotte Proudman look meek. If I heard a female colleague doing the same thing about Andrew in accounts, I'd probably laugh and I might even join in.
And I can...
What is your view on Islam?
As a gay man, I'm very comfortable with Donald Trump's statements, although he made a few different statements with varying degrees of firmness on this subject. I'd be very comfortable with a halt on Muslim immigration. I would wish that had happened in London. It isn't radical Islam, it's Islam that is the problem. That is my view. I don't particularly like the way that European cities are changing. I think Germany is a horror show. I think London has changed dramatically in the last 10 years. And what happens in America matters for everybody else. What happens in America matters most, and I don't want America to go the same way.
Do you consider yourself a white nationalist?
No.
Isn't that what some people would think of when they hear of you don't like the changing face of places like London?
No, I'm talking about culture, not race.
Muslims coming in.
No, I'm talking about culture, not race, and it's typical of someone like the BBC to try to conflate the two, because
I'm
what they want to
asking you
do,
a question.
well, what they want to do is to suggest that if you're proud of your country and the ideals on which your country is founded, that somehow makes you a racist. It doesn't. I'm not talking about skin colour. I don't care about skin colour. All my boyfriends are black. I don't give a toss about skin colour. What I do care about is values and ideas, and the regressive social attitudes of Muslims in the West are terrifying. Absolutely terrifying, and organisations like yours won't report on them honestly, accurately, or fairly. It's left to other places to do it. And then what you do is, once you've failed to report on them accurately, is accuse people who are concerned with some justification about the changing nature of their culture, not race, in their countries, is you then accuse them of being white nationalists. That's pretty disgusting.
It's more than 40 years since the Equal Pay Act, and yet still it is a fact that women do not earn as much as men.
No, I'm sorry, it's not a fact. You can only say that if you take broad brush averages across all industries and all genders, and you can say the amount of money going to women is a bit less.
Well,
it's not. I mean, for one thing, it's illegal to pay a woman less than a man for the same work.
Interrupt him, Nikki. Go on.
No,
it's illegal to pay a woman.
If that's the case, then when these results are published, they won't reveal anything. They won't reveal any difference, but they're going to. That's the point. The whole reason David Cameron is encouraging it.
I want them to be published, because what they're going to show is that at all stages, all else being equal, the genders are paid the same. Or even what they might show, you're saying the culture hasn't changed. I think your argument's 20 years out of date. The culture has changed, which is precisely why there are more women going to university, more women graduate from university, they're getting higher grades, they're 2-to-1 favoured when they go for job applications, particularly in science and technology, and they're paid more, depending on whose figures you believe, up to the age of 30, 35 or 39, it's probably about 35, women are paid more than men.
But
so whatever gender pay gap you're talking about has already been fixed.
But it hasn't.
So the good news for you is that there isn't a problem anymore, although there used to be, and that if we do release these figures, which I'm very excited about, they're going to prove me right. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
But that's not true. I mean, the point is the gap is there still, and older women in particular suffer more from it from younger women. We shouldn't just leave older women, you know, to flounder, should we? Just because they were part of a generation where it was even more difficult for them to get on.
I'm making a specific explanation about where these figures come from, and you haven't really addressed the point that I'm making. What I'm saying is that you can only create this gender gap when you take a broad brush across all genders, all sectors, all work. That doesn't reflect the different choices people make, and employers aren't, you know, shouldn't be forced to pay a full-time salary to somebody who works part-time. You haven't come up with a solution to that, and you haven't addressed the problem with the figures, which is that no serious economist treats the gender pay gap as a problem to be solved. No economist thinks this is a problem because they realise what I'm explaining.
Is that male economists or female economists, just to be clear?
Well, I mean, where I get most of my figures on this from is from a feminist female academic, Christina Hoff Sommers at the American Enterprise Institute in the US, who looks at the figures from the UK and the US, and she does a broad survey of all economists, I'm sure of all genders, but my source for this sort of stuff is generally Christina Hoff Sommers. So she is a female feminist academic who is mystified that this is this sort of feminist myth that won't die.
Like any set of ideas, Islam is like a religion. As any set of ideas, it deserves to be scrutinized. Well, I have scrutinized it, and I have found it wanting. I have found it lacking. Everywhere there is Islam, you will find women oppressed. Everywhere there is Islam, you will find... You're wearing a hijab in the United States of America. What is wrong with you? You see, they want to shout you down by saying, oh, what about me? I'm not so oppressed. Well, let's move on from women. If you don't care about female genital mutilation, don't care about forced marriages, don't care about acid thrown in the faces of your Islamic sisters, if you don't care about any of those things, fine. Let's talk about gays instead. In 12 Islamic countries, I could be killed for my sexuality. Is that okay? 100 million people live in countries where it is illegal to be homosexual. All of those countries are Islamic. This is not an ISIS thing. You know, you will see gays being thrown off the roof in ISIS-controlled territories. But this has nothing to do with terrorism. This is mainstream Muslim culture. Your religion does it everywhere your religion exists. It is a threat, an existential threat to gay people. Everywhere in the world there is Islam, you will find women oppressed, homosexuals murdered, you will find gang rape. Now, there's a unique phenomenon that doesn't really exist outside of Islamic cultures, of familial gang rape, where fathers, brothers, and cousins go out raping people together. It happened in Rotherham in the UK. And the liberal establishment in the UK didn't investigate this because, according to a government report, not a far right-wing blog, according to a government report, 1,400 young girls were raped in racially or religiously, as you choose to define it, motivated crimes, because both the police and the authorities were too scared of being called racist to intervene. And this pattern repeats itself everywhere there is mass Muslim immigration. My suggestion to you, America, is that you don't need it here. Learn your lesson from 9/11. Learn your lesson from Orlando. These socially regressive, see, they walk out when they don't like the facts. These socially regressive attitudes, of Muslims in the West are horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. The surveys show that 52% of British Muslims think that my sex life should be made illegal. 39% of them. Why are you leaving? Why are you leaving? Don't you want to talk about numbers? Are you embarrassed? Are you embarrassed? Are you embarrassed of the hateful culture that surrounds your religion, that oppresses women and murders homosexuals and commits unspeakable acts of terrorism? Are you ashamed of it? Would you like to talk to us about why there's no global Muslim peace movement? Because I hear lots of very upset people at my talks complaining about statistics they can't refute. I don't hear a lot of Muslims standing up against terrorism.
Now, a Nobel Prize winner has been criticised for suggesting women scientists shouldn't work with men. So Tim Hunt said the problem with girls is that you fall in love with them and they cry when you criticise them. He admitted being a chauvinist pig, but does that excuse his comments? Well, with us is columnist and broadcaster Milo Yiannopoulos, as you can see, and also Dr. Emily Grossman, who is a maths and science teacher and tutor. Who'd like to start, Doctor?
I think the issue here is that his comments are irresponsible in an environment where there is such a strong gender imbalance still in the sciences. I work as a teacher and tutor, and I am really passionate about encouraging young women, girls at school to study science, to go into sciences, and there's still an environment where a lot of young girls still feel that science isn't for them. There's a historical reason for that. Back in the Renaissance time, women were told that their brains were too soft to have a powerful skull, that exercising our brains would shrink our ovaries. We're still coming back from that, and we're in an environment where we're desperately trying to dispel these stereotypes, to dispel the image that science and maths is more for boys than it is for girls. And these types of comments, potentially harmless in terms of intent, are actually really reinforcing these stereotypes that we're trying to get away from in terms of encouraging girls to go into science as a career.
We hear this a lot from scientists, you hear a lot in particular from female scientists, but the fact is that there is some reason to suppose that there is an advantage to being a man in certain subjects. There's reason to suppose that gender essentialism, biological determinism, whatever you want to call it, the fact that there are male brains and female brains, may indeed have some basis in science. Now, this is sort of thrown out of the window completely by feminists and female academics who just refuse to accept that there's any reason whatsoever why there might be a gender imbalance. Two things on that. One, actually the science is very much still out on that. And two, if you look at equality in society, if you look, for example, at Bangladesh versus Norway, what you notice is the number of women in science and technology subjects actually goes down as societies get more equal, because women simply don't make the same choices that female academics and feminists would like them to. Women actually don't want to go into the sciences on the whole, and when they have every option available to them, they tend to choose not to.
I don't think that's the issue. I think it's about confidence. I think women suffer. Again, we're not talking about all women, we're talking about some women, we're talking about some men, from lack of confidence and from something called imposter syndrome, where we attribute our successes to external factors and we lack the confidence to actually believe that we are good enough to do it.
Sorry to interrupt you, but you know, if you're going to get put off a career in science because of an offhand comment from a Nobel Prize winner, how committed were you really in the first place to being a scientist?
Thank you very much. Next question.
Hi, Milo. I'm a freshman here at American University. I'm considering studying like pre-law, and I'm super into like debating. And there's something so, it's very impressive how you debate. It's quick and it's really.
There's a big butt coming, isn't there?
Oh no! Oh, I'm giving you a little compliment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then I accept it wholeheartedly.
Okay. Well, and it's funny. So this is a two-parter. Forgive me. But okay. So there is this like everybody like saw the like feminism is cancer thing on like in the library and got torn down and stuff, right? Like
whoever did that deserves a slap on the bottom.
On the bottom.
Horrible behaviour.
Oh my goodness. It's funny, and then like so the news about Breitbart. So they had this video, and it was like, would you rather have your child be a feminist or have cancer? And it's like, whoa.
Yeah, the students at Michigan did that. It was funny.
Yeah. So and they like promoted it, but it's funny. So my freshman year of high school, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I had Hodgkin's lymphoma. I had stage 4 cancer, like from my neck down to like my pelvis. So like that's where all the tumors were. But like I'm also, and I hate to break it to you, I'm a feminist too. So like, would you what would you tell my parents like when I was diagnosed and like almost about to die? Would you be like, I'm so sorry that you also believe in like equality of the sexes? Like that's such
I see. Well, I would quote my favorite rapper, and I would say, if you can take a dick, you can take a joke. Turn down for what?
from
Surely they want to
activists
be
on
able
your...
to see what clothes will look like before they try them on.
Well, they can see what they'll look like on them by trying them on.
Yeah.
I mean, designers put clothes on skinny women because it looks better, because that's what people like to look at. Both women and men prefer to look at that. I mean, the fact is, you know, again, this is not really about men at all. This is about pressures that women put on other women, you know, to look good and to stay thin and to stay healthy. And frankly, those women who do aspire to look like what, you know, you may think are sort of stereotypical standards of beauty or unattainable sort of beauty standards, women who do look like that tend to be happier. They tend to have better success in relationships, and they tend to report that they're more content with life. When I said, you know, women are getting more unhappier every decade, I'm not just pulling that out of my behind. Women these days report, as compared to even 50 years ago, they're far more depressed. They're far more likely to report themselves as generally unhappy with life. They're far more likely to be single, and they're far more likely to contemplate suicide. And a lot of this has got to do with the fact that after 30, women do struggle to be happy if they're not in relationships. And part of the reason that many women are not in relationships is you've got these weird celebrities like Lena Dunham, who put sort of, you know, being quivering and blobby and unpleasant as a sort of virtue on our screens, encouraging women to turn themselves into quite unattractive, you know, sort of spectacles. I don't think that's particularly healthy for anybody, but ultimately it doesn't really affect men. It certainly doesn't affect me as a homosexual. It just affects women because you're making women unhappy.
You come here and you have sort of under your breath almost, not as loudly as you said anything else, but under your breath you sort of said, oh, white supremacists, blah, blah, blah. You kind of wanted to get it under the radar. You wanted to say it without me having an opportunity to dispute it. Fuck you. How fucking dare you call me a white supremacist? So, oh, you're not leaving as well, are you? Oh, come on. They always leave. They always leave. Defend your allegation that I'm a white supremacist. Defend your allegation that I'm a white supremacist. Defend your allegation that I am a white supremacist. You call me a white supremacist. Defend it. Defending... Am I? Baby. See how... The amount of black dick that's been in my mouth. It's really I must be the most self-loathing white supremacist in the world. I asked you, and I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give you one more opportunity to defend your allegation that I'm a white supremacist. Just try, do it. Because you're enabling it. Because you have the main platform that is spreading. What am I enabling? Because what I've talked about this evening isn't race or skin colour, I've talked about values. And when the BBC did what you're attempting to do now, as 1.3 million people have seen on my YouTube channel, what they did was try to conflate an admiration for American values, for the First and Second Amendment, for freedom, democracy, property rights, capitalism. They tried to conflate that with race. They tried to say, if you're proud of your country, or you admire the values of another country, that somehow makes you a racist. It doesn't. So I ask you one final time. Please justify your allegation that I'm a white supremacist.
As a journalist and a reach to millions of people, you have an obligation, and you are blowing it with this hateful rhetoric that's further dividing this country.
What hateful rhetoric? You're not answering the question. White supremacists hate me. The Daily Stormer is the epicenter of white supremacists on the internet. They declared a holy war on me. They said they would never read Breitbart again until Breitbart fired me. They said I was their number one enemy. White supremacists and anti-Semites hate me. I prefer the expression race mixing kike faggot, but whatever. Sir, racists hate me. They hate me. Of course they do. So racists hate me, but I'm a white supremacist. You're just confusing me. You're confusing me. And I'm very easily confused because I'm a homosexual, but should we give him another chance? Give him one more chance. Okay. All right. Okay. One more try. I believe in you. I believe in you. I know you can do it. One more try. Justify your allegation. I didn't ask you if I was enabling white supremacists, which is just an equally idiotic allegation, but it's not the one you made. I'm asking you to justify your allegation that I'm a white supremacist. Please do so. All right. I think we've had enough. we've had enough fun at the expense of the disabled. Thank you very much. I'm sorry you're so stupid. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been wonderful.
My name's Sergeant First Class Devin Allred. I'm stationed at Fort Sam Houston down in San Antonio, and as heartening as it is to see the movement push back against the political correctness culture on campuses, the military is continually pervasive in silencing us and essentially making us shut up. So, sir, from the bottom of my heart, I just wanted to say, you give a voice to us who have to be silent, who have to deal with having the political correctness shit pushed down our throats, and you give us a voice. So I am genuinely indebted and thankful for what you do, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for your service. I hope you won't find this too forward, because I'm not a citizen here, but I kind of feel like America looks after all of us. And so when I hear servicemen and women who say things like that, it touches even my cold, black, dead heart. Because I sort of feel like you look after all of us. I really appreciate that. And thank you for your service.
My wife wouldn't let me bring you and give you my Purple Heart, much like Trump received one, so could I please have the honor of gifting you my ID tag, sir?
Of course, of course, of course. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. Thank you.